I'd like to offer my condolences. Last night we had a tragedy. All of the agencies standing up here are rooted in the preservation of life at sea. Around midnight last night, there was a 911 call that came in. Lifeguards, Border Patrol, and the Coast Guard were dispatched. We went to Black's Beach. We launched the Coast Guard helicopter and a Coast Guard small boat. The result is we found one panga made it to shore with approximately 8 people on board. The second panga with 15 overturned in the surf. Sadly, this tragedy continues and has been happening for quite some time. Since 2017, we've had a 771% increase in human trafficking in the Southern California coastal region. Since 2021, we've had 23 lives lost at sea. This is not necessarily people trying to find a better life. This is part of a transnational criminal organization effort to smuggle people into the United States. These people are often labor trafficked and sex trafficked when they arrive. Again, it was a tragedy. We offer our condolences, and I'd offer to Chief Garland for some words.
Can you identify yourself first,
Yes.
sir? Thank you.
I'm Captain James Spittler, Sector Commander for Coast Guard San Diego. James Garland, Lifeguard Chief for the City of San Diego and San Diego Fire Rescue Department. So around 11:30, 12 o'clock last night, we had a 911 call from a Spanish speaker that contacted the dispatch center of the SDPD. That person reported that there were approximately 15 people and 8 people on 2 vessels that had overturned at Torrey Pines City Beach in San Diego, down at Black's Beach. When lifeguards arrived on scene, we arrived in rescue mode. We did the best we could to recover people from the water, try and find survivors. And the lifeguards, after about an hour of searching and recovering bodies, we were in recovery mode for about 5 hours after that. The access to the area was very difficult due to the tide and the coastal cliff there. So lifeguards worked to technically extricate all of the victims there. We had San Diego Fire Rescue Department, had 3 ambulances, a truck, an engine, and a full cast. The Unified Command included CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, the Air Marine Operations, U.S. Coast Guard, state lifeguards, San Diego Police Department, UCSD Police Department, and obviously San Diego Lifeguards. So we worked to recover those, and my condolences to the family and those smuggling. This is the one of the worst maritime smuggling tragedies that I can think of in California, certainly here in the city of San Diego.
Sir, were there any survivors that were found?
So local rescuers, state rescuers, law enforcement, and our federal partners, nobody encountered any survivors during this time. But the timing was of all the assets getting down there. People may have left the beach, we're not sure.
So how was there one boat that made it to the shore, but there was no survivors? Do you have any understanding of, was it not turned over?
When we arrived on scene, both vessels were capsized and inside the shoreline. That area is a very hazardous area, even in the daytime. It has a series of sandbars and inshore rip currents. So you could think that you could land in some sand or get to waist-high, knee-high water and think that you're safe and be able to exit the water, but there's long inshore holes. So if you step into those holes, those rip currents will pull you along the shore and then back out to sea.
How was the surf conditions?
The surf conditions weren't large. It was probably a 3-foot swell.
So the 911 Spanish speaker that called, were they in the boat or in the water, or we don't know, or are they?
We're not clear. They just gave the information that the vessels were capsized and how many people were down there.
So just to clarify, both were capsized.
Both were capsized when rescuers and federal agents got on scene.
How many confirmed dead are there?
We've lost 8 souls.
Are there children involved? Did you say that already? Adults? Are you gonna...
They were all adults.
Okay.
Do we know if the two boats crashed into each other, causing the capsizing?
We don't know.
We don't know what caused the capsize.
No.
The nationalities?
It was the fog, surf conditions, pitch black down there. There's no lighting from the coast down there. So without navigation lights or a plan to navigate well, it's just a difficult landing and extrication.
Do you have their nationalities?
We don't.
Did you notice any, is it too soon to say to have ID on them or anything else like that?
We don't have any of that information at this time.
The medical examiner.
So right now, U.S. Coast Guard and lifeguards are still in recovery mode, and we'll still continue to search with air assets, sea assets, and land assets until later this afternoon.
Especially with those air assets, I mean, it was incredibly foggy this morning. How did it impact things, and also are you expecting to find more bodies maybe as it lifts up? No. Thank you.
The conditions last night prohibited San Diego Fire Rescue air assets, so all air assets were brought by the federal partners, and they can speak to their assets.
I'm sorry, could you clarify how many were on each boat and with the 8 were all aboard that one boat? Is that correct?
The reporting party said it was 15 and 8.
On the 15 on...
15 on one vessel, 8 on another. Both vessels were capsized when we arrived on scene.
And the 8 who died were all on that vessel with the 15, or you don't know?
We don't know. Yeah, when we arrived on scene, it was 2 capsized vessels and people who had perished on the beach and in the water. So we did our best to rescue those that were out in the water and then work any viable candidates.
So
if
lifeguards
8 people
entered the
died,
water
where
to
are the
rescue
other
those
7?
boats, or tried to?
Yes.
What about the survivors? What do we know about?
As I said, no local assets, no law enforcement, rescue, or federal assets encountered any survivors at the scene.
Not even the woman that called?
No. By the time we got there, there was nobody there.
All adults, men, women.
Yeah, we don't have the demographics. You'll have to contact the county medical examiner's office.
Pause right there. Thank you all for coming out. Since we are in the Q&A section, please limit it to 1 and 1 follow-up. There's a lot of you, so we'll get through it that way. If a speaker is speaking to the specific agency question, they'll come up, but let's just be respectful of everyone here and get their questions in. So 1 and 1 follow-up, please.
What's your name and rank?
James Gartland, San Diego Lifeguard Chief, JAMES, Gartland, GARTLAND.
So just to be real clear, so the woman said there was 15. You don't have that confirmed. You just know 8 people dead, and she said that there were 15 others.
That's what the reporting party reported, yeah, to the 911 dispatcher.
Commander Spindler, about the, if you can answer her question about the air conditions.
Yes, ma'am. So around 1 in the morning, a Coast Guard 60 got airborne. It was the only aircraft that was able to get up due to the weather. When they arrived on scene, visibility was about 50 yards. The lowest they could get was down to 100 feet. They couldn't see the water very well, even with night vision goggles. So they did a few legs of the search pattern and determined that their risk exceeded their ability to do a search effectively, so they returned to base. They should be launching here shortly if they're not already airborne, and we expect to continue the search until after lunch. It all depends on the survivability of the water and the number of people there.
And then after lunch,
It'll be determined then based on the information we have and whatever new information we can gain between now and then. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, one more. I don't know who will pretend as, but how is the government working out with authorities south of the border in regards of the 1 or 2 groups or cartels, but especially groups that are handling all this wave of boats crossing the border in that way? Do you have any leads on how and any help from the community to know anything from south of the border?
Border Patrol. I'll let Border Patrol follow up to the first part of your question. But the second part, I think awareness. If we continue to provide awareness that every time they get into a panga to come northbound, their lives are at risk. The real number of deaths in the California coastal region is unknown. Often these boats are overloaded, the maintenance is poor, and they often do it like weather last night, where it's very little visibility. It's very challenging for anybody to operate in those conditions. They were likely one of the very few mariners out there at sea. So I'll let Border Patrol answer the first part.
So for your question,
Could you identify yourself?
Eric Laverne, Special Operations Supervisor with the San Diego Sector Border Patrol. I can't speak to any specific. So we continue to work with our partners in Mexico and the government of Mexico. I can't speak specifically targeting any specific groups that are responsible for maritime smuggling, but our relationship is quite strong with our partner agencies down there in Mexico, be it ANAMI, Sedana, or SEMAR.
Any other questions?
Do you have any
Thank
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you have any numbers on smuggling incidents, or can you at least speak generally about the trends with smuggling?
We'll have to look up the exact numbers, but we've had a couple hundred events this fiscal year. It's in keeping with the last few fiscal years. Usually around, I believe this year we're around 300 maritime events, but that encounters swimmers, surfboards, pangas, pleasure craft, and everything else.
And do you know, follow-up, is this the deadliest maritime incident that in Border Patrol history that you know of, or that
I am
one
not
of
aware.
the
Yeah,
deadliest?
I'm sure it is one of them. I don't know if this is the deadliest, but it should be one of the most deadly maritime events in San Diego's history.
All set? Thank you.
Thank you, folks.